You might have noticed there have been a few concepts I explain as being pretty common sense, but psychology complicates them a bit, often in the process of conducting research. In many cases, that's because research is identifying parts and relationships. Emotional intelligence represents a different kind of complicated. The overall idea makes sense, but psychologists are in the midst of a debate about where it fits in terms of the mental processes. Some of the debate may be related to the relatively unusual way that emotional intelligence emerged. The first suggestion of what we now call emotional intelligence was Gardner's interpersonal and intrapersonal intelligence. That means that understanding our own emotions and those of others were initially presented as a form of intelligence, a form of cognitive ability. Some psychologists still view it that way. They work with models that are called ability models. Other psychologists assert that emotional intelligence is the combination of individual difference characteristics, intelligence, personality, and affect, which refers to feelings. One reason for resulting debate is because it influences how emotional intelligence is measured. Remember the importance of validity? We're looping back to those ideas. I said that emotional intelligence emerged in an unusual way. What's unusual about it, though? The unusual part is that the term emotional intelligence is actually credited to Daniel Goleman, a journalist, who introduced the term in a book written for a popular audience, not academics. The popular interest fueled by that book led to the scientific interest, fitting with that scientist-practitioner model. That said, there is general agreement about what emotional intelligence includes: perceiving, using, understanding, and managing our own emotions and those of others. The question is whether it's a unique ability or the result of a combination of other characteristics. And the answer to that question influences how it's measured. Measurement, in turn, influences research. There hasn't been much research about how EQ relates to person-job fit and performance, partially because of the debate about the concept, but also because it's a relatively new concept. The figure in this slide is from an article reporting the results of a meta-analysis. In other words, the authors pooled results from a number of studies to draw conclusions based on a larger pool of data. This is from the Joseph and Newman article that's mentioned in the Dark Side of Emotional Intelligence article from The Atlantic. The researchers tested a model where emotion perception influenced understanding, and that in turn influenced regulation, and that in turn influenced performance. The little numbers above the lines represent the strength of the relationship. 0 would be no relationship, and 1 would be a perfect correlation. You might have already noticed that the relationship between emotion regulation and job performance is pretty weak. Theory and research suggest, though, that the sequence of the EQ-related activities in the model is accurate. In other words, it's not likely that perceiving emotions or understanding emotions has a stronger relationship with performance. The Joseph and Newman study did find a stronger relationship between emotional regulation and performance for jobs that required higher levels of emotional labor. That makes sense. Emotional labor involves managing one's emotions. It also suggests that emotional intelligence is relevant for person-job fit. The Dark Side of Emotional Intelligence article refers to a few other studies that provide further support for that idea. Emotional intelligence is a great example of the scientist-practitioner model, with practitioner interest inspiring scientific work. While there's generally agreement about what a person does when they're emotionally intelligent, the scientific interest in the topic includes a debate about the specific mental processes that lead to those responses and behaviors. That influences the focus of researchers, but there is evidence that EQ is important in considering person-job fit.